Good morning. Today should, by all means, be the last day of Samson. I know it's taken one more day, but it's just been so good. I hope you've enjoyed it. I enjoy the story, and what we should learn from it. So, if I remember correctly, where we left off was back towards the end of 15. Yes, right after, so around verse 9, I believe, where he had let the foxes loose and burn their crops down. Okay, that was, I got all the prep done, and then I was like, wait a minute, where'd we leave off? And then I was like, I probably should have made a note of that. But one thing that I get to teach it in my senior classes, one thing I've always been extremely interested in, not that I would ever do it, is Mount Everest. I think Mount Everest is really, really interesting. And when you read about it, what people do, and the details about it that we don't know, that most people don't know, and I always share this with people, and I think it's important because it really speaks to our nature as people. More people die on Mount Everest on the way down than they do the way up. Did you know that? Around 60% of deaths that happen on Mount Everest are on the way down. And the reason is the journey to the top is so rigorous and it's so hard. And you don't even know, because once you get up so high, you have to pray that the weather is good enough for you to go to summit, to the peak, to see what you go to see, all the tens of thousands of dollars you've paid, all the help, all the camping. I mean, and it's not even up to you if you can go to the top. You just hope that you're lucky enough that the weather's good enough to go. And after you battle to get to the top and you're lucky enough to get up there, that most people, because they're exhausted, because they're tired, because they've forgotten to be as careful as they were, the adrenaline of accomplishing your goal, they get lax. And then on the way down, horrible things happen. And I think we sometimes we tell our football teams that when they've done well, when they've got a lead, it's not the way up that'll get you, it's the way down. And how true is that for us as people in conflict? Like, I think it's so fun. Like, we go through trials. I know, at least personally in my trials, and I wonder how I'm going to make it through, how I'll overcome it. And I will get over the hump, at least by my own power, that I think I was worried about, but it's always something else. It's what you didn't expect. I remember I struggled in a math class, not because I wasn't able to do decent on the final, because I didn't do the practice modules that took away your worst grade, right? It's always something like that, something little. And that's really true in Samson's case. Now, just a couple of things to just somewhat review as we've talked in the story of Samson. One of the biggest focuses is that God is in complete control throughout this story. As wild as it is, as crazy as it is, as little sense as it makes in time, God is fully in control. Everything that happens is by His will, under His power. Right? The second thing is it puts such a great emphasis on what God sees versus what we see. Right? What was Samson's problem? He did what was right in his own eyes. And you're going to see that again here. And a big emphasis on perspective and what you see and how we should see things. All right, so we'll start in 9. If we read a little bit of the last part, it'll be fine. So it said, Then the Philistines went up and they camped in Judah. And they spread out in Lehi. And the men of Judah said, Why have you come against us? And they said, We have come up to bind Samson in order to do him as he has done us. Then 3,000 men of Judah went down to the cleft of the rock of Edom and said to Samson, Do you not know that the Philistines are rulers over us? What then is this that you have done to us? And he said to them, As they did to me, so I've done to them. They said to him, "We have come down to bind you, so that we may give you into the hands of the Philistines." Now, we'll stop there for a minute. One thing that's important to note is remember the predicament of the Israelites. One, okay, whose fault is it that they're in this to begin with? Theirs. They have turned away. And this scenario shows you how far away they have turned. They don't know who the enemy really is. That's the point. And Dr. Ralph Davis said in his commentary, and it was really good. Do you remember in the garden when he cast them out of the garden and he said what? There will be enmity between you and the serpent for all your days. Right? And that in itself is supposed to be somewhat of a blessing, that you will know. He doesn't let the fallen people go and you will be their ally. But you will know evil. You will fight against it. It will be a struggle for you. That's the way it's meant to be for God's people. Right? But here his people are so far that they don't know who the real enemy is. Who are they upset with? They understand the Philistines are bad, but who are they upset with? Samson. Samson, who's been killing the Philistines, even if it's not for the best reasons, but is at least doing the work, right, that God wants done, even with the wrong intentions. And they're furious with him because the Philistines are their rulers. They're servants to them. They've probably worshiped a lot of their gods. Davis talks about how many there were and other beliefs, and these people have turned to them, to the Baals, to Dagon, to all these different things. And here we are, they've come to Samson, right, and they're like, we have to take you to the Philistines. Look at what you've done. Look at what you've caused. Right? And that's so important. It's so important that we realize, what we're fighting against and what really is the evil in our life. I mean, I think a lot of times we're more prone to fight each other than we are really to fight the things that we should be fighting against. Yep. And that's really true. I mean, and this all, if you don't really understand the purpose of Samson, it's a mirror of Israel. It's very much like Hosea, right? It's meant to show them like a I guess what would you call it, an allegory, okay, of what they have been, what they've done. I mean, think of Samson, right? Samson's given all the strength to win battles he should not win, but he wins despite the circumstances, just like Israel. Even though he's unfaithful, God still cares for him, right? And time again, what does he do? He runs back to what he shouldn't run back to. And then when he needs help, who returns? The Lord, because God is faithful despite their faithlessness. Does that make sense? And so that's what we're seeing. And so the Israelites come to him. They say, we're going to bind you. Look at what you've done. And Samson said to them, swear to me that you will not kill me. So they said to him, no, but we will bind you fast and give you to their hands. Yet surely we will not kill you. Then they bound him with 2 new ropes, and they brought him up from the rock. When he came to Lehi, the Philistines shouted as they met him, and the Spirit of the Lord came upon him mightily, so that the ropes that were on his arms were like flax that is burnt with fire, and his bonds dropped from his hands. And he found a fresh jawbone of a donkey. So he reached out and he took it, and he killed 1,000 men with it. It's pretty incredible. It's pretty incredible. What a story. What a story. I love it. Like I was saying, they have this in the children's book. What little boy doesn't love this story? Right? And so his strength comes back. Lord cares for him. He rips his bonds. You get a shout from the Philistines like, uh-oh, right? And he grabs the nearest weapon, which is a fresh donkey's jawbone, which means it's still got its teeth, right? And you would imagine it's probably like a boomerang shape, like Captain Boomerang almost. And he's got it in his hand, and he just starts whacking these guys, right? And there's nothing they can do about it. It's almost, you get the idea, there is no resistance. They have no power. Right? Their foolishness was thinking that they could accomplish what they failed time and time again. And so Samson, in all his creativity, says, then Samson said, he sings his own song, with the jawbone of a donkey, heaps upon heaps. With the jawbone of a donkey, I've killed 1,000 men. Put a tune to that, Michael. Right? That's what he says. He is arrogant in this moment. He is prideful. It's him who has done this. And you get the idea, he has no fear. It's like all he wants with the Israelites is like, look, just promise you're not going to kill me on our way over there so I can finish these guys. That's pretty much it. Right? He thinks at any time, and it's true, right, up until this time, that any time he needs the strength of the Lord, it's going to be there. And it has been. It says, when he had finished speaking, he threw the jawbone from his hand, and he named that place Ramoth Lehi. That's probably a bit of a mispronunciation, but you know what it means, what it translates to? Jawbone Hill. Okay, wow. Right? This guy, he's not reaching deep for any metaphorical value. It is what it is with Samson. We do. I mean, that's just truth. I mean, you think about it. I mean, he's not working. And again, he's very much prideful and arrogant about this. You know what I mean? This is my hill. You get the idea, he doesn't leave the bodies. He goes and collects them and stacks them into a giant heap so he can name it this place. It's like he wants to admire his work, almost. But this is the part, because, right, it's never the way up that gets you. It's not the way up. When he had finished speaking, he threw the jawbone from his hand, and he named that place Ramoth Lehi. Then he became very thirsty. And he called to the Lord and said, you have given me this great deliverance by the hand of your servant, and now shall I die of thirst and fall into the hands of the uncircumcised. What happens to Samson? He almost thirsts to death. I want you to think about it. It's not the 1,000 men that got him. It's not the Israelites that tied him up. It's water. The man's so thirsty he's going to die out in the desert after this. That's the idea. How strong? How strong is Samson really? How strong is Israel? How strong are we really? We're not. And what is the metaphor? The Israelites, right? He's delivered them into the promise. Right? They didn't do what they were supposed to do, and that's why these people are still here. But what God's saying is, like, if this is an allegory or metaphor for this, He could have let them starve in the wilderness hundreds of years ago. Make no doubt about it. Whatever battles they've won, their leaving of Egypt, everything that has happened, they can't even feed themselves. That's the purpose of this scene with Samson. As strong as he is all the thousands of men he's killed and crazy escapes. If God wished him to thirst to death, right, it's over. And that's the truth for us. Whatever victories we have, whatever God has allowed us to overcome, it's the work of the Lord. Whatever grace we see in our lives, whatever point and mercies we've experienced, it's not by any of our own doing. It's by the work of the Lord. And it's important that we remember that, because it's not the way up that gets you. It's not the it's what happens after. It's the weakness of thinking, I've done this. The moment that creeps in, the moment that we believe. I remember we did that whole, a while back, sermon series on sanctification. And I remember one of the biggest parts of it was, we never arrive. You will never arrive. The moment you believe you have arrived, that's when you're in trouble. That's when there's a real issue. And Samson stacks these bodies. He sings his song. He admires them. And then he realizes, wait a minute. I'm going to thirst to death out here. Lord, right? He knows where it comes from, right? Like Samson, deep down, he knows, right? He doesn't say, what am I going to do, and start scrambling for water. Who's he cry out to? Lord, you have given me this great deliverance by the hand of your servant, and now shall I die of thirst and fall into the hands of the uncircumcised. But God split the hollow place that is in Lehi so that water came out of it. And when he drank, his strength returned, and he revived, and therefore he named it En-Hakkore, which is in Lehi to this day. And so he judged Israel 20 years in the days of the Philistines. And so things are somewhat made right here. Right? Samson gets, in the South we like to call it like humble pie. Right? He gets a better perspective here that he needs the Lord, that it is the Lord. And right in the way that he even asked the Lord, he's like, I know you have delivered me. You have granted me this deliverance. Now shall I die of thirst in the desert. And the Lord, even though Samson is completely undeserving, the Lord is faithful to what he promised. And so, now Samson went to Gaza. So 20 years, you get the idea that 20 years goes, he judges Israel. He's doing what he's supposed to do. Okay? It says, but now Samson went to Gaza, and he saw a harlot there, and he went into her. Right? Again, it always starts with what Samson sees, where his eyes are, what is right in Samson's own eyes. When it was told to the Gazites, saying, Samson has come here, they surrounded the place and lay in wait for him all the night at the gate of the city. And they kept silent all night, saying, let us wait until morning light, and then we will kill him. Now Samson lay until midnight, and at midnight he arose and took hold of the doors of the city gate and the two posts, and he pulled them up along with the bars, and he put them on his shoulders, and he carried them up to the top of the mountain, which is opposite Hebron. So, he falls back into the stuff he was doing before. His eyes go to the wrong place. You get a very similar scenario with like David and Bathsheba, right? David had done things well. He had understood, but he wasn't where he was supposed to be, doing what he was supposed to do. And his eyes got caught on the wrong thing. Right? That's how fickle we are as people. That's how easy it is for us. Right? And so Samson goes, and pretty much the story is the town realizes he's there. They are enemies of the Israelites. They're like, he is their judge. He is their great defender. In the morning, we'll ambush him. Now, some would say, well, he just wakes up and takes off and leaves. No, it's the providence of the Lord, because who wakes you up in the morning? Have you ever thought about that? At what time do you wake up? I mean, people tell stories of their house burning down with them in it, and all of a sudden they wake up. Does that make sense? The fire alarms didn't go up, they just awoke, right? Every day is a blessing. We know who wakes us up in the morning. We know who allows us to open our eyes. And so it's God's providence just allowing him to wake up to take off. And he does, and he runs, and he grabs these giant, they're not like those doors. Okay, they're much bigger. I mean, I couldn't describe the size. You get the idea. It's like Lord of the Rings type stuff, giant gates. Okay, he picks them up, he throws them on his back, and he never stops. He picks them up, bars and all, like whatever they're attached to, rooted in the ground, he just yanks them up like two newborn babies and takes off to the nearest hillside. Right? And you just imagine all those guys are sleeping, they're waiting outside this prostitute's home. And out of nowhere, this man shoots out of there like a missile in the dead of night. They're all like, where's he going? Scoops up the gates and gone. And they're like, fellas, it was a well thought out plan. Okay? Right? But, we'll catch up next week and see what we can come up with again. Right? I mean, that's it. Foiled. Just like that. Right? And again, right? God means for it to show their stupidity in the idea that man could stand against Yahweh. That man can stand against the will of the Lord. They will not have Samson until it's the Lord's will to do so. That's just the truth. By no means should he have ever been able to escape this town. Right? But who would have accounted for that? That is that they would have locked the gates so he couldn't escape. Doesn't matter. He took the door and all. Still locked. Still got the lever. Like the chains hanging like from a hotel door. It's still dangling because he just ripped right through it. That's the idea. But Samson doesn't stop there. And it says, after this, he came to love a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. Now, what's interesting about us getting Delilah's name, she's the first woman's name that we get. Okay, we didn't get Samson's mother's name. We didn't get his first wife's name. We don't get the prostitute's name. But we get Delilah. Does anyone know what Delilah means in the Hebrew? It means weakness. It means to be delicate or weak, right? And we know, us knowing the story, right? It's weakness that's going to do Samson in, right? It's the irony. The way the story plays out, the way that God has used it, the strongest man on the planet that has ever, the Superman, the closest true Superman the world has probably ever known, is undone by a little Philistine woman named Delilah in weakness. The Philistines came to her and they said to her, entice him and see where his great strength lies, and how we may overpower him, that we may bind him to afflict him. Then we will each give you 1,100 pieces of silver. Now that is like 4 lifetimes worth of wages. Okay, 10 is what someone would probably earn in a year. 10. So this is like generational wealth. So just to understand how much they wanted rid of Samson. This is a fortune. 1,100 pieces of silver. So Delilah said to Samson, please tell me where your great strength is and how you may be bound. Please tell me and how you may be bound to afflict you. And Samson said to her, you think Samson would have clued in on that one, right? Just by the way, is there any way that you could be bound and afflicted that you would want to share with me? Okay, now, we know Samson's already fell for this one time. Remember the riddle? Remember he gave the riddle and his wife got it out of him and betrayed him again. That's foreshadowing to what's going to happen. It's to show Samson's weakness. Okay, and here it is again. And so Samson, and you'll see this because I was trying to understand. I'm like, this makes no sense logically. But they turn it into kind of a game. And it's to show you Samson's arrogance. Like he doesn't believe that despite what they do, he's escaped so many times. He's done so many great things. He really doesn't believe that anything's going to happen to him. Right? So they play this game and he says, if you bind me with 7 fresh cords that have not been dried, then I will become weak and be like any other man. Then the lords of the Philistines brought up 7 fresh cords that had not been dried up. And she bound him with them, and now she had men lying in wait in the inner room. And she said to him, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. But he snapped out of the cord strings, as a string of tow snaps when it touches fire, so his strength was not discovered. Then Delilah said to Samson, behold, you have deceived me, and you've told me lies. Now please tell me how you may be bound. And he said to her, if they bind me tightly with new ropes which have not been used, then I will become weak like any other man. And so Delilah took the new ropes and bound him with them and said to him, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. For the men were lying in wait in the inner room, but he snapped out from the ropes with his arms like a thread. Then Delilah said to Samson, up to now you have deceived me and told me lies. Tell me how you may be bound. And he said to her, if you weave 7 locks of my hair in a web and fasten it with a pin, then I will become weak and be like any other man. So while he slept, Delilah took the 7 locks of his hair and wove them into a web, and he fastened it with a pin. And she fastened it with a pin and said to him, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. You think you would have figured it out by now, right? Obviously he has. It's a game now. At this point, no one's that foolish, but he just thinks nothing's going to happen. You get the idea that the Philistines, every time they come back, they're like a little more black and blue, right? So it's like, they're eventually like, one of these plans needs to work, and it needs to work soon. I don't know how much more this we can take, right? Because this is like the 4th time. The idea is he shakes free, he escapes. I don't know if he kills any of them. You could just imagine it's not going the Philistines' way. So he said, so while he slept, Delilah took the 7 locks, she fastened with a pin. The Philistines are upon you, Samson. But he awoke from his sleep and pulled out of the pin in the loom, the pin of the loom in the web. Then she said to him, how can you say, I love you, when your heart is not with me? You have deceived me these 3 times, and you have told me you have not told me where your great strength is. It came about when she pressed him daily with her words that she urged him, that his soul was annoyed to death. Now, okay, you can imagine this goes on for days. It's daily. I don't know what lines she throws him. Now, how can you be in love? Men should be vulnerable. We should be intimate together. Like you get the idea. It's like the dinner table lines until she just wears him down. Same as the first wife. You get the same idea. Right? Until he's so worn down by these lines that he tells her. Now, he knows what she's going to do. Why does he tell her? Because he doesn't believe that what? That God's strength is ever going to leave him. That is the only sensible idea. That's what Ralph Davis says. It's the only thing that makes sense. He knows this is the fourth time it's going to happen. Right? And this is not the first time he's been laying with a woman he's not supposed to have been laying with when God's strength comes upon him. The last time he was with a prostitute in Gaza, and God woke him up out of sleep and let him tote the gates off. Why would it be any different now? So he told her all that was in his heart, and he said to her, "A razor has never come upon my head, for I have been a Nazarite to God from my mother's womb. If I am shaved, then my strength will leave me, and I will become weak and be like any other man." And when Delilah saw that he had told her all that was in his heart, she sent and called the lords of the Philistines, saying, "Come up once more, for he has told me all that is in his heart." And then the lords of the Philistines came up to her, and they brought the money. And they brought the money in their hands, and she made him sleep on her knees, and she called for a man, and had him shave off the 7 locks of his hair. Then she began to afflict him, and his strength had left him. She said, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." And he awoke from his sleep, and he said, "I will go out as at the other times and shake myself free." But he did not know that the Lord had departed from him. Right? And it's like you get the idea of the shock that would have ensued. For the first time ever, this man is going to be bound. Right? He wakes up. He says, it's going to be like every other time. There's no way they shall defeat me. And you can just imagine. I can't imagine the look on his face when he goes to throw him around or move or whatever, and he can't. And they take him down. They probably put him on his knees. It says, then the Philistines seized him, and they gouged out his eyes. And they brought him down to Gaza and bound him with bronze chains. And he was a grinder in the prison. So the worst possible fate that you could probably ask for at this time, okay, is they gouge out his eyes so he can no longer see. They take him and they put him as a grinder. The idea is like, have you ever seen a mule that pulls the lever that would grind grain, right? It's some type of physical labor like that. They reduce him to a farm animal, okay? And for ever how long he's in this prison, he pushes and grinds that grain while they mock him. Now, you have to understand, he had really hurt them in their power at the time. Everybody knew who Samson was. All the Philistines understood who he was. And now he's like a circus event for them. Look, you remember Samson who gave us trouble all those years? Go look at him now. Blind and pushing that grain wheel. Over and over. It says, now the lords of the Philistines, hold on. It says he was grinder in the prison. However, the hair of his head began to grow again after it was shaved off. And now the Lord of the Philistines assembled to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon their god and to rejoice. For they said, our God has given Samson, our enemy, into our hands. When the people saw him, they praised their God. For they said, our God has given our enemy into our hands, even the destroyer of the country, who has slain many of us. Now the irony of that statement. Because we know how this story ends, right? What's the real irony of this statement? God's given them over into Samson's hands. They just don't know it. Yeah. Right? Talk about the sovereignty and the work of the Lord. Who is the judge of Israel? Who is the protector of Israel? It's the Lord. Right? And Samson, sorry, you can go ahead. Nothing. And their God, just so you know, Dagon was a man's head on a fish body. I mean, that's pretty bad. You know, it's like a character from SpongeBob, like on land. So you get this idea, like how foolish. They bow down to this giant fish body with a head on it. Say, this is who has defeated Yahweh. This is who has given us Samson. Right? The joke's on them because their very destruction's laying in their prison blind, pushing a wheel around. Now, really, it's really sad to see what's happened to Samson. But in truth, it's the greatest blessing Samson could have gotten. And we don't see weakness that way. We're dealt blows in life. And it's hard for us to see them in a way that God is using them for our benefit. And for those of us that He cares for, that love Him, right? God works all things for those who love Him to their good. Does that make sense? And here it is. We're like, what good could come out of this? Samson's probably thinking, you know, this is the worst fate a man could probably ever meet. And God is meant for it to happen. Samson didn't wander his way into it. This is not like a bad scenario that God's like, oh, I didn't see that coming. God meant for this to happen to him. Every minute of it, every second was meant for him. It said, and it so happened when they were high in spirits that they said, call for Samson, that he may amuse us. So they called for Samson from the prison, and he entertained them, and they made him stand between the pillars. And Samson said to the boy who was holding his hand, let me feel the pillars on which the house rests, that I may lean against them. And now the house was full of men and women. All the lords of the Philistines were there. And about 3,000 men and women were on the roof looking on while Samson was amusing them. So they march him out at whatever Dagon festival fair. They got a boy holding his hand to guide him around, and they would laugh. Okay, and you can just imagine Samson can't see anything. His eyes are gone. Right? His strength has been gone all these years. So pushing that stone, he's probably exhausted. He's been a slave. And they wander him in, and all he hears is the laughter. Who knows, they're probably throwing food at him. It's that type of scene. And then Samson called to the Lord. He said, oh Lord, please remember me. And please strengthen me just this time, O God, that I may at once be avenged of the Philistines for my 2 eyes. And Samson grasped the 2 middle pillars. Now, isn't that a different response than what Samson has ever gave? Is that a different mindset? Isn't that a different perspective or a penitent heart? You should think about that, right? The man is blind now, but can actually see, can actually understand. And that's the allegory with Israel. That's what it takes for them to see. That's what it's taken time and time again. How does every chapter start in Judges? They did what was evil, so the Lord gave them over. And then they did what? Cry out. It's not always repentive. It's not always repentive, sorry. But that's us. Right? People say, well, you know, God always grants prayers when you're at the lowest moments. That's when He's so likely to hear your prayer. I don't think there's anything biblical about that. I think the truth is we don't pray unless we're down there. Does that make sense? We don't look for God because that's our nature. We don't ask for help when we're at our best because often we think we've done it. Right? The lows, the weaknesses we experience, and the weaknesses Samson experiences here are a blessing to him. Because without them, who knows if he comes to this state. And he said, O God, that I may once be avenged for my 2 eyes. And Samson grasped the 2 middle pillars on which the house rested, and he braced himself against them, one in his right hand and one in his left. And Samson said to them, let me die with the Philistines. And he bent with all his might, so that the house fell, and the lords of all the people who were in it. So the dead whom he killed at his death were more than those he killed in his life. That's got to be a lot of people. He's killed a lot of people. Okay? Sometimes we underestimate that. Now the idea, people were watching this. It's the Lord's, it's the grand feast. Like people were on the outside watching this. Okay? Even the ones who didn't die. The whole town is watching. The whole Philistines' hordes are watching this. They're about to watch this blind, hopeless man push these pillars down on all their leaders. That's what he does. It's a severe blow to them, by the way. This ruins their ability to effectively rule the rest of the area how they would want for some time. Okay, it's not just, we crashed a dinner party. It's a little bit more than that. Right? Said, then his brothers and his fathers of his household came down, and they took him, and they brought him, and they buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol in the tomb of Manoah his father. Thus he had judged Israel 20 years. That's the end. And I'll just close with this. So you can only imagine what having the Lord's strength back would have felt like for those final moments. It had been probably so long since he had felt that. It had probably been so long and hopeless. What a blessing that was. And it makes me think, at the end of his life and what he was despite all the wrong he did and how God cared for him. There's an old gospel song I remember that people sang it. I was thinking about it when I left here last Sunday, and I'll close with it. I don't know if you've ever heard it, but it's called God Saves Old Sinners. You ever heard that song? And it says, I'm so glad that God saves old sinners. It says, I'm thrilled and amazed how he sets them free. But the biggest surprise in God's redeeming of sinners is that he would save a sinner like me. And I think about that song. You imagine Samson. Man, God saves people. No matter what age, no matter what status in life, no matter where they're from, no matter how bad their past is done, his promises are not dependent upon you. His love, his grace, his mercy, all of the things that he gives us have nothing to do with your ability to keep commandments or the law. Right? Samson was used every moment in God's will, in his plan for the people, and none of it had to do with any ability of Samson himself to keep or follow or do. Right? We talked about it at the beginning that people don't like to talk about Samson in the Jewish religion because it's a religion of works. We can sing the praises of our God with the story because we know who the real judge is. We know who has done all the work. All right, I'll close with that. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for who you are. We thank you for your word, what it teaches us, Father. We're thankful that even when we're sinful, even when we turn for you, Father, you still keep your promises. You still care for us. You still grant us grace, Father. And Father, I just pray that be so evident, so in the front of our minds as we come into the service today to worship you, Father, that you keep your promises. Father, that you care for your people. Father, that there is no amount of commandment keeping or works that we have to do that earn your grace, Father. You give it freely. Father, I just pray that as we move into the service, that you open our hearts,